The Subcommittee of Finance and Appropriations concerning Economic Development and Natural Resources will come to order. Gentlemen, if you could quickly introduce yourself. Start with you, Emmett.
Emmett Hanger, Senator from Augusta County, 24th Senatorial District.
Frank Ruff, Southern Virginia.
I'm Senator Dave Marsden, Subcommittee Chair, and I'm from Fairfax County. This is Jason Powell, our staff member with the Finance Committee. And we are live streaming this meeting. And I got something I need to read here. At Public View, Granicus.com, and the public is encouraged to view the meeting through the live stream as public seating in the meeting room is limited per social distancing guidelines. No standing is allowed in the subcommittee room. The presentation will not be shown on the live stream, but you can follow along by viewing the presentations posted on the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee.virginia.gov, sfac.virginia.gov. With that, I'm going to turn this over for a briefing to Jason Powell, who's our staff member, who's going to go over overview of the governor's proposed budget for commerce and trade, agriculture and forestry, and natural and historic resources. And Jason, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You are chair of the subcommittee with the most ampersands in it.
Right.
So with the transition of Charles Kennington over to the Youngkin administration as Deputy Secretary of Finance, I now have responsibility for economic development, commerce and trade issues. If it seems like I'm just reading to you, it is because I am still learning economic development and commerce and trade issues. So in 29, the major initiative that you will recall hearing about from our annual meeting is a proposal to put $150 million into the Virginia Business Ready Sites program for the expansion and the improvement of mega sites and smaller sites throughout the Commonwealth. There is a proposal for $8.5 million of infrastructure upgrades at Progress Park in Wythe County. That is to support a MEI-approved project. There is $1.5 million for the Commonwealth Development Opportunity Fund to provide cash to Jefferson Labs. You might recall that there was language that directed Jeff Labs funding to come from the CDOF. There's also a proposal to eliminate $6.3 million for the shipping and logistics headquarters due to a change in the grant structure that was requested by the company. This table just summarizes the net change in position for commerce and trade agencies. You'll see that there's a proposed increase of $141.6 million in the first year and $155.9 in the second year, bringing that to a total of $297.5 million in additional spending over the biennium. The largest driver of that is $190 million proposed deposit for the Housing Trust Fund. There's also $42.5 million in each year proposed to begin saving for grant payments anticipated for the HQ2 project. There are required payments for economic development incentives that total $40.4 million over the biennium. $30 million is proposed to capitalize a low to moderate income solar loan and rebate program. There's an increase of $10.5 million to support the Virginia International Trade Plan, $7.4 million for the Enterprise Zone program, $7 million for the Governor's Motion Picture Opportunity Fund, and $6 million proposed increase in the Regional Innovation Fund administered by the Virginia Innovation Partnership Authority. Table on the next couple of slides just itemizes each of those proposed actions and including some of the smaller ones down through each of the agencies. We will discuss some of the smaller ones and have agency friends come and speak with us about them as we move through the subcommittee. On slide 8, this slide 8 itemizes the economic development incentive payments that are due to the specialized grant programs in each of the 2 years. These things are all under contract and are the Commonwealth's commitments to each of these programs. Turning to the newly created Secretary of Labor, savings are primarily driving the budget actions, general fund actions in the Secretary of Labor. The appropriation of the introduced budget does propose a net general fund reduction of $63 million below the base budget. Includes an appropriation of $232 million in additional federal funding for administration of the UI program And there's language requiring the VEC to hold employers harmless for pandemic-related claims activity when calculating the UI tax rates for each tax year until pandemic-related claims are no longer factored into the base tax rate formula. This itemizes those actions. Turning to agriculture and forestry. Not much going on in agriculture and forestry in Senate Bill 29, but in Senate Bill 30, the introduced budget does include increases totaling about $30 million over the biennium. The largest drivers of those are $6 million proposed for the Urban and Community Forestry Program, $5 million at VDAX for the Farmland Preservation Program, $3.2 million proposed to establish a New Kent nursery, an increase of $2.9 million in the Agriculture and Forestry Industries Development Fund. There's $1.9 million included to increase funding for the Spirits Promotion Fund. You may recall there was legislation last year that was not successful, I understand. There's another bill this year, and this is a general fund appropriation to get the Spirits Promotion Fund capitalized.
Jason,
Sir.
if I might, is this to assist folks in the private distillery business, or is this to promote?
It is, Mr. Chairman, modeled on the wine fund, so it's a promotion fund.
Okay, thank you.
There is $1.4 million proposed to increase or to improve recreational amenities in Virginia state forests. This itemizes the increases in agriculture and forestry in each of the years. At the agency level, within VDEX, I will point out that there's $5 million for the Farmland Preservation Fund, and then the Spirits Promotion Fund, Senator Marston, is also expected to have a slight increase due to the increased sales of, Virginia wine. The Wine Promotion Fund is listed there, middle of the table. Table here just itemizes actions at forestry I've already discussed. Turning to natural resources. The proposed actions in Senate Bill 29 would reduce available general fund resources by $3.9 million by increasing the transfer of funding from the general fund that is deposited to the watercraft sales and use tax. So that would reflect increased sales of boats and fishing equipment and hunting equipment as well. The increase is slightly smaller for that program in Senate Bill 30 of about $1.8 million each year. There's also capital outlay authorization proposed in Senate Bill 29 of $1.6 million to replace the Claremont Farm barn. That is the insurance recovery funds. I know that we have discussed the issue in prior sessions. Turning to Senate Bill 30, the introduced budget proposes a net increase of $224.3 million over the biennium. There are a lot of savings in base adjustments that I will not go over because primarily it's just removing one-time actions from last year. But there is a $339.5 million increase for the Water Quality Improvement Fund, which reflects the mandatory deposit in the first year of $313 million plus $303 million plus $26.5 million discretionary deposit in the second year to the Natural Resources Commitment Fund. There's $181.2 million in non-general fund proceeds from participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative for the Community Flood Preparedness Program administered at DCR and for program administration by DEQ. There's also funding in the Department of Housing and Community Development for their half of the non-general fund revenues from RGGI proceeds. There is $22 million proposed for land conservation initiatives, including $12 million for a acquisition of tribal lands program. There is a deposit of $17.6 million to the Clean Water Revolving Fund to match anticipated increased federal funding available through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. There's $10 million proposed to establish a new fund for the preservation of archaeological sites associated with Black, Indigenous, and peoples of color. And $8 million in staffing and compensation adjustments are included for agencies throughout the Natural Resources Secretariat. In capital outlay, there's more than $212.5 million general funds and capital outlay authorizations, and we have asked DCR to come to the Capital Outlay Subcommittee this Friday to go over their capital proposals. Again, this table just summarizes the net actions by year. As I have discussed most of the large initiatives across the DCR, I will point out a couple of smaller things, such as the increase in state park maintenance of about $1 million a year, and then opening costs for several projects that have come online, such as the New River Trail Inn at Foster Falls. And Machicomico State Park operations will transition to being general fund supported in the second year, as the Skiffs Creek mitigation monies will be exhausted. Next slide has primarily the DEQ actions, and I've covered many of them, but I will point out there are a couple of smaller support actions, such as the proposal to provide $3 million for the town of Dumfries to support MS4 permit obligations, as well as stormwater activities for the town of Occoquan. I've covered most of the large actions proposed at Historic Resources, and I will note that at VMRC there is a small action of $1.5 million proposed for a Chincoteague Inlet study to address, look at sedimentation issues in the Chincoteague Inlet. I believe we've discussed, or we've heard about that issue now for the past 3 years. With respect to the Water Quality Improvement Fund, it is a large $313 million mandatory deposit in the first year. There are $44.6 million in off-the-top designations, which are shown in the table on slide 25. I will point out that there are several new off-the-top allocations here, including the Small Herd Initiative, the MS4 Regulatory Support Program for newly regulated localities, and the Shenandoah River Harmful Algal Bloom Study. The natural resources capital outlay proposals are included on slide 27, which sum to $67.1 million in state park and other natural area improvements. $45 million is proposed for soil and water conservation district dam rehabilitation. $100 million is proposed for a deposit to the Stormwater Local Assistance Fund. And then, finally, Mr. Chairman, I have put the ARPA fund allocation list on the last slide here. You'll recall from the special session that many of the ARPA allocations are topics that are within the commerce and trade area, including unemployment assistance, broadband, wastewater and drinking water within natural resources. The table here shows the appropriated amounts for those approved in Chapter 1, included in the Chapter 1 biennial budget. In the red column, you'll see the proposed allocations for Senate Bill 30, and then the totals of what is been allocated to date. Those, Mr. Chairman, are the topics that we will be covering in more detail during the course of the subcommittee's deliberations this session. I certainly hope that we will be able to hear from perhaps the Secretary of Commerce and Trade and the Virginia Economic Development Partnership maybe next week. I would hope that we would be able to address natural resource issues in the subsequent week, and then the subcommittee can respond to other emerging issues in the week before report out. That completes my remarks, Mr. Chairman. If there are any questions, I'll happily respond to them.
Thank you, Jason. Questions from the subcommittee?
Well, so I'm not going to start into it now.
Wait a little later till things heat up. Yeah, there we go. There we go. And welcome, Senator Howe,
Thank you.
to your subcommittee.
I'm on two subcommittees at the same time, so.
Well, that's if anybody can do it, you can. There we go. George, anything that you wanted to go over? Okay. Needless to say, there'll be in a budget surplus year that we are experiencing right now, there will be any number of budget amendments that we'll be addressing in the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. And with that, no one has anything else, the committee will rise.
Timed that well.
There you go.